Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Tonight's big stories. The Justice Department is taking note of the House Quad Committee's findings as it digs deeper into the war on drugs. For the ICC, though, the panel's initial output is not as key in its own probe.
The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has deported over 270,000 people in only a year, the highest since 2014. Now, the figure is feared to climb further with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's promised immigration crackdown.
And no temporary reprieve anytime soon for dismissed Mamban Mayor Alice Guo. Her petition for bail has been denied over qualified trafficking charges.
The Justice Department believes the Quad Committee's findings are valuable as it continues its investigation into the drug war of former President Rodrigo Duterte.
The International Criminal Court, though, is not as interested since it does not consider the Quadcom as a legal body.
The ICC is more keen on the Justice Department probe. The foreign court is even willing to step aside if the DOJ investigation proves more thorough and impartial than their own. Marian Enriquez with tonight's big story.
There's no politics involved in the Quad Committee's decision to recommend charges against key personalities in the drug war. Recently, the panel led by Surigao del Norte 2nd District Representative Ace Barber suggested the filing of criminal cases against former President Rodrigo Duterte and a handful of his allies. That's for crime against humanity over their supposed role in the bloody drug war. Included in the House's list are Senators Bato de la Rosa and Bongo. Digong's former PNP chief and former special assistant believe they are being targeted for their alliance with the Dutertes, particularly Vice President Sara Duterte. Barbers was quick to shut this down.
We only follow where the evidence leads us. No, testimonial and documentary evidence is the basis of our committee report.
Even before the Quadcom came to be, there's already the International Criminal Court. But Barbers doubts if the ICC can use the mega panel's findings in its own drug war probe.
I have really no idea if this will help sa kanila. Tayo ay sumusunod lang dun sa polisiya na ibinigay ng ating Pangulo na tayo po ay hindi membro ng ICC.
ICC Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti has this explanation. Information that the Quadcom got from its series of public hearings does not have any bearing on the ICC's investigation. That's because the House Committee is not an actual court.
Hindi prosecutor ang Quadcom. Kaya dadaan pa yan sa DOJ ulit. So kailangang malinaw yon na yung mga kung sinong tumestigo sa Quadcom ay testigo rin sa isang eventual court trial.
If there's one thing that the ICC could be interested in, according to Conti, it is the Justice Department's next move on the lower chamber's recommendation to sue Duterte and his allies. Once the DOJ's investigation begins, there's always the possibility that the ICC will stand down. An efficient handling of drug war cases could be one sign the foreign court is looking for to know that the judicial system in the Philippines is working.
Kumaga, hindi basta-basta na, ay okay na tayo, alis na tayo guys. Magpapa-comment yan sa mga biktima kung ano ang pananaw nila. Or pwede ding magpa-comment sa Philippine government.
For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
All right, let's fly across the Pacific over to the United States, where immigration, or ICE, is reporting more than 270,000 deportations over the recent financial year, which ended on September 30. Now, this figure is the highest tally in a decade that covered the terms of Presidents Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Barack Obama. According to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras were the most common destinations for deportees. Those who were forced to leave mostly crossed through the southern border, about a third of whom have either been convicted of or are facing criminal charges in America. The 12-month period when the massive removal of illegal residents occurred coincided with the U.S. presidential campaign. Now, that campaign highlighted Trump's promise to launch the largest crackdown on immigration in U.S. history. Trump assumes power on January 20 of next year. Of course, the question we're all asking here in the Philippines, what could this development mean for undocumented Filipinos in the U.S.? Let's ask that to our first guest tonight. We have Foreign Affairs Undersecretary for Migration, Ed De Vega, joining us tonight via Zoom. Thanks for taking our call, Yusek.
Good evening. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any data right now out of the 271,000 that were deported? How many Filipinos were included in that list?
No, we don't have the data on that right now, but let me clarify. We have to emphasize a point. Everybody has been acting very, very concerned or scared about what would happen to the undocumented Filipinos once President-elect Donald Trump takes over exactly a month from now. Let us remember, we have to put it in perspective. During the campaign, when he was talking about massive deportations, he was specifying a certain kind of overstaying or illegal alien. Number one, criminals, because he was always accusing a lot of these foreigners without legal stay of having committed crimes against Americans. Number two, security risks, because there was the allegation that some may have entered from terrorist groups around the world. And mostly, he was targeting those foreigners who were brought in by President Biden and who are not actually contributing to the U.S. economy because all they do is receive social welfare. The Filipinos, legal or even illegal, do not fall under those categories. So I would like to emphasize there is no reason for now to be overly concerned, because if we actually keep talking about it, we will just be raising attention to ourselves, to the fact that there are 300,000 overstaying Filipinos. So the trick is for our Filipinos who are not overstaying to simply continue doing their work and to be law-abiding residents, even though they're not documented in the United States. I can tell you the statistics do show that there were more people who were deported, including more Filipinos deported during the Obama administration than the previous 4-year administration of President Trump. So when our ambassador to the United States was advising overstaying Filipinos to go home, he was just giving friendly advice to those who were overly concerned about it and telling them, well, if you can go home on your own, because if you go home now, you might not be permanently banned from going back or entering the United States again. Whereas if you are deported, part of that means you will never be able to get back to the United States. So that's the first thing we want to emphasize. Let's wait for the new administration to take over and see what happens.
Yusek, just to be clear, I want to go back to Sean's first question. Out of the 271,000, there are no Filipinos, or are there Filipinos included in that batch that have been deported?
Which is this 271,000?
Fiscal year that was released, I think September of last year to September 2024.
For sure, there would be Filipinos. We would not. I would not know the exact number of Filipinos, but for sure there would be Filipinos. Yes.
What would be the top reasons of the 350,000 illegal Filipinos staying in the United States? Why haven't they gotten themselves legally registered? And we are number 5 out of the 10 countries that have been released in this Department of Homeland Security report. Mexico having 4.8 million illegal immigrants, Philippines having 350,000. What would be the top reasons to not get your papers right?
Well, first of all, perhaps they're not qualified to get their papers right. Secondly, these Filipinos may already be satisfied with the current situation wherein they're just quietly there working. I will say, though, it's not for lack of trying. I have myself been assigned to the United States on a few occasions. I know a lot of these overstaying or undocumented Filipinos want to get themselves fully legalized, and they have a battery of immigration lawyers, including Philippine American lawyers, and they're trying to do it. Right now, though, given that the declarations of the new administration is are not sympathetic to the presence of overstaying or undocumented aliens, well, all the more we don't see that there will be a lot of attempts to legalize themselves. However, again, the new administration has not yet taken over. Let's remember, during his first term, President Trump promised to build a wall. There's no, between the United States and Mexico, there's not even 10 feet of that wall. So let us see what happens.
Okay, Yusek, is the DFA helping with that? Are you offering any legal assistance to those undocumented Filipinos who want to make their stay legitimate in the U.S.?
Well, they haven't requested for legal assistance, and it is an open question according to the rules, including the rules for our legal assistance fund, as to whether that can be used to apply for legalization. What it definitely could be used for is, I mean, a legal assistance fund is if they are already facing charges, if they already are in court, in which case, in case they need a lawyer, then they could avail themselves or request for assistance to legal assistance fund. But again, the United States is a unique case. There are a lot of lawyers offering pro bono services, and these Filipinos are comfortable with these lawyers, meaning not asking funds. Let me tell you, we do have in our records some cases where Filipino Americans have requested assistance, but they're for different purposes at all and not for legalization. However, in case they request, then we will see if we could consider it.
Yusek, if, like you mentioned earlier, some people, some Filipinos who are not staying in the U.S. legally, they kind of do not, kumbaga, takot sila, no, that they won't pass the requirements or something like that. But can you give us an idea of what is the biggest hindrance, you know, to not pass the requirement? Is it a financial thing? Is it a paperwork thing?
Essentially, not a paperwork thing or a financial thing, although those are issues. It's the fact that they may be engaged in activities which, in the American point of view, is not a crucial activity needing the presence of foreigners. Now, if a Filipino, for example, a student who is there and wants to convert his or her visa to a work visa, or a Filipino who is there as a spouse, meaning spouse of an American citizen, and they're not entitled to work. If they want to convert it to a visa which allows them to work, if they are engaged in a very particular job, which requires absolute expertise, which is rare to obtain, then it is rather easy to get that permit from U.S. authorities. Now, the majority of Filipinos in the United States may be engaged in office work, which for Americans are not a particular, I'm sorry, for U.S. authorities
crucial
are not
industry.
a particular field which wherein there's an emergency of positions to fill. But for example, if they were nuclear scientists, highly
Skilled,
technical, medical workers, yes. But the thing is, for Filipinos who fit the bill, they already are registered. They already are legal. Precisely. So,
Okay.
so again, yes.
I can imagine the level of anxiety that these illegal immigrants have, considering the options. One would be to just be a law-abiding citizen. The other is to obtain legal remedies. The other one is to go home. But what would be the practical advice that you can give? What work should they apply for to give themselves a stronger chance at qualifying?
Well, the higher the educational level needed to fulfill or to obtain that particular position, the better the chance. So certainly scientists, highly skilled computer experts, medical professionals would be favored. But that is the issue again. For those fields, Filipinos already do have the permit.
Right.
O
To work there.
mag-asawa na lang.
Oo nga, kasi-
Mag-asawa ng Amerikano.
Pero yun. Pero
Yun
ito
nga,
pa,
isn't that
our
that's really
consulates,
that's a scary
our
one.
consulates had a meeting. Our consulates in the U.S. had a meeting a few weeks ago, which we discussed, and they're all committed to talking to Filipino community leaders and Filipino American leaders to see how they can help. And right now, though, we have to see how this new administration
Correct me if
will
I'm wrong.
be fulfilling their promises. Because as I said, they will not instinctively be targeting Filipinos or even other Asians for that matter. Because, and this is very politically incorrect, but we have to state the truth. It seems to me that President Trump is more inclined to have deported aliens whose native language is Spanish.
Oh.
Yeah. They
And,
are the biggest
That
number.
is because a lot of them, well, a lot of Hispanics are very important to the U.S. economy. There have been a lot who were brought there and up to now are not actually engaged in any meaningful profession or just receiving doles
Yeah.
from the government. That is
Understood.
accused. So again, the best is the higher the educational requirement needed for this. You see, that's the likelier thing. But may I recommend the Filipinos to continue to engage with our consulates and embassies to see how they could advise you and therefore. But you know, mga kababayan natin sa US, they're kind of smart. They know how to take care of themselves. Tsaka may pera yan kahit paano, no? I mean, hingi sila ng tulong, but they can afford certainly tickets or play. By the way, kung i-deport naman, hindi naman hihingi ng pera yan for the ticket kasi US ang magbabayad yan eh. By the way, our consulates are committed to issue the necessary travel documents para hindi na tumagal sa detention center in case mahuli. Now,
Yusek is sobrang
you know,
interesting when you said
yes.
that the U.S. will, kumbaga, more likely to consider those that are in high-paying jobs, high educational attainment, yung mga scientist, doctor, etc., nurse, right? But syempre, yung mga illegal migrants, yung profile is obviously hindi sila nasa ganung mga trabaho. Pero sa ibang bansa, no, correct me if I'm wrong, parang they would say na, you know, like, we like to get migrants kasi the people who live in that country, they don't want to do menial jobs anymore.
Blue-collar
Yes.
jobs. Oh.
Right? Hindi ba nag-hold through ito sa America? That's, I think, mostly in Europe.
Well, one thing also kasi sa Europe, in fact, sa Europe, kahit na illegal ka, in many countries, after a certain number of years, automatic pwede ka magpa-legalize. You see? Now, there's one reason to consider. In Europe, they need people. They have small population growth. Whereas sa United States, the population is steady. The population growth and the number of Americans is not dwindling. So, whereas in Europe, they talk about the, you know, the, the scarcity of Europeans now getting married and giving birth to new Europeans. So that partly explains why they are quite eager to accept Filipinos. Now, sa US, yes, that's true. But there are millions and millions, hindi lang Filipino, of foreigners occupying those jobs. And besides, okay, what are we talking about? I think you're talking about dishwasher, waiter, di ba ganon yun?
Agriculture,
Yung mga ayaw
social
kunin ng mga
welfare.
Native Americans, meaning native-born Americans. So, tagalinis ng kalsada, you know, I assume all of you in the States, you know, Filipinos don't occupy those jobs. They don't. I don't. I mean, so I was in New York for 3 years. I don't think I saw a single Filipino sweeping the street or working as a gardener. Not a single one. They were mostly different nationalities. So that would not apply. If the Filipinos there are working, well, I suppose that's in the East Coast. Maybe sa New York, sa California, iba, no? Pero kunyari, mga Filipino, baka may iba sa factories, maybe, madali para sa Amerikano to fill up that position. There will always be another alien, legal pa, who will occupy it. At any rate, I'm confident yung mga Pilipino who are just working will continue to be allowed to work. Pero kung Filipino na, I'm afraid to undocumented Filipinos, no? Pero kung illegal Filipino, tapos involved in drug smuggling, ganyan, you know,
Naman.
Well, Yusek, I was just about to ask that also because
baka
President...
mahuli sila.
Oo, sabi
Yes.
nga po ni President-elect Donald Trump, he will be targeting criminal migrants first. So, with that in mind, is that a reason for undocumented Filipinos na huwag masyadong mag-worry considering or assuming na hindi sila kriminal? And my question also is, sino po ba yung pwedeng i-classify or consider as a criminal? Because according to ICE data, most offenses of undocumented immigrants are actually minor infractions such as traffic violations or DUIs.
Oo, less than 1% yung mga convicted daw sa homicide or charged with homicide.
I reiterate, I already said that, yes, Filipinos in the U.S. don't have to worry. In fact, a lot of the Filipinos there have reacted to Ambassador's statement to say that, well, they're not actually being targeted, you know? So that's true. Now, as for criminals, well, President Trump was talking about illegal aliens who raped and murdered Americans, and very few aliens have done that, documented aliens. So I don't think Filipinos whose offense is just jaywalking have to worry about anything, no? But avoid drug offenses. That might be more typical, no?
Always good advice
Filipinos.
yan, no, Yusek, to avoid drug offenses anywhere in the world. But if we may, no, Yusek, can we move on to another topic? Of course, Mary Jane Veloso, how she is doing, what her possibilities and her chances are now that she has been repatriated back here to the Philippines. We've been trying to also understand the arrangement we have with Indonesia with regard, no, to Mary Jane Veloso specifically. So if you could enlighten us, what is this so-called practical arrangement that we have with them?
It's with the DOJ. It just talks about the agreement that she would be transferred to the Philippines, which she has been, to serve her sentence in the Philippines following the Indonesian court's decision. However, that same practical arrangement recognizes the authority of the Philippine president to grant reprieves, pardons, and clemency. So that's also quite crucial. And also it says that she no longer can return to Indonesia. It also talks about an obligation of Philippines to reciprocate in case a similar situation arise in the future, where Indonesia, though, is the one which asked for one of its citizens to be brought to Indonesia.
Well,
So the fact is, this arrangement is a simple arrangement, a simple agreement, which makes it easier for both parties to comply with their obligations, and to have done this because this really was a landmark achievement. Personally, it's the greatest achievement in my career, because I was in charge as head of the migration affairs for managing this with the embassy. So
huge
we
win.
thank Indonesia.
Yes.
So that's it. I mean, the DOJ is now in charge of the case.
Yusek, what would you say, or could you give us a clue as to what the interests of Indonesia here could be if they were to ask for something in exchange for the
Okay.
transfer?
First of all, Indonesia, I could say why they did this. Of course, it's a new president. They want to project something positive about their human rights situation, relations to other countries, and so forth. Now, about this, it's simple. In case there's an Indonesian who is on life imprisonment in the Philippines, and the Indonesians would prefer that that Indonesian be brought to Indonesia, then I'm sure they would be expecting that the Philippines would positively respond to such a request. But may I clarify, they have not made any such request. They did not mention any person or any pending request in the future. It's just in agreement.
That's exactly what the Justice Department also has said. Undersecretary, we felt your happiness when you called the repatriation of Mary Jane Veloso like the highlight of your career. So thank you for that, and thank you also
Thank
for
you for
joining
your work.
us tonight. Yeah, and for joining
Merry
us
Christmas,
tonight.
all.
Merry
Christmas
Christmas.
to you,
Merry Christmas.
DFA Undersecretary Ed De Vega over Zoom. Maraming salamat.
Taking a quick break, but after that, dismissed Bamban Mayor Alice Guo will remain in jail after her bail petition was dismissed today. The details of that when we return. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Dismissed Bamban Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo's petition for bail over her qualified trafficking case was denied by Pasig RTC. The bail petition was denied because the evidence presented by the prosecution against Guo and 6 of her co-accused was strong. Because of this, the dismissed mayor will remain detained at the Pasig City Jail female dormitory. Guo's qualified human trafficking case stemmed from a raid in a Pogo hub in her town of Bamban back in June, where 800 Filipinos and foreigners were rescued. Aside from this, Guo is also facing graft, money laundering, and tax evasion cases.
Don't worry about your benefits. The Department of Health continues to assure PhilHealth members that despite the state insurer getting zero budget next year, still Health Secretary Ted Herbosa himself said PhilHealth's system needs to be fixed. Let's delve further into this with Department of Health spokesperson, Assistant Secretary Albert Domingo. Welcome back to the big story.
Hi, good evening, Gretchen, Sean, and Pauline. Good evening to everyone watching and listening.
Okay, Asik, I was listening to several podcasts over traffic, describing or talking about the reserve funds of PhilHealth, which amount to about 600 billion. And
Yep.
they were saying that this number is actually less than what is required by PhilHealth's insurance liabilities. Meaning yung mga dapat niyang babayaran kapag may mga claim, which amount to more than 1 trillion pesos. So tama ba yung pagkakaintindi ko nun? At bakit nga ba, I mean, what is there to understand about the money that PhilHealth has, and is it spending its money efficiently?
So, tama yung pagkaintindi mo, Gretchen. You understood correctly. However, I regret that how they communicated it is not the right way. Insurance contract liabilities, or ICL, as it's becoming popularly known, you can compute it many ways. Yes, it is required among all insurance agencies, pero hindi kasi lahat ng insurance pare-pareho eh. Meron kang pension fund, in which case, pag ikaw, pumirma ka ng insurance contract, sinabi na, life insurance, that's you said, life insurance, I'm gonna pay premiums, diba, for a certain number of years. And then when I pass away, which is the concept of life insurance, your beneficiaries get it, whatever the face value is. That's not how PhilHealth is. PhilHealth is actually a pay-as-you-go social health insurance fund. The ICL for PhilHealth should be less, much less than 1.1 trillion. Ladies, yeah, exactly, diba? Here's the problem. Ang tingin kasi ng karamihan is dapat yung reserba, as it's popularly known, reserba ng PhilHealth, sagarin natin yung 1.1 billion kasi hindi natin alam, baka kailanganin natin hanggang tumanda tayo. However, kayo ba, when you have health insurance, do you just pay once in your life and then you don't pay again the next year? Every time you pay each year, it is assumed that someone else used what you paid. Sabi nga sa paluwagan, di ba, pag naghulog ka, may gagamit na kasi hindi ka nagkasakit that year. But in another year, na naghulog tayong lahat at ikaw naman yung nagkasakit, ikaw yung tatanggap ng tulong ng PhilHealth. That's how it should be. And at the end of the year, as much as possible, 0-0, except for a 2-year reserve. Now, what's a 2-year reserve? The 2-year reserve is computed by looking at the program expenditures for 2 years. And when the board reviewed the program expenditures for the past 5 years, 2019 up to 2023, it was only at 140 billion per year. So 140 times 2 is 280. So 600 is too high. By law, it should only be 280.
Okay, but I think, Dr. Domingo, I think naman we all understand yung sentiments ng tao also, where it's coming from. I myself, I contribute to PhilHealth personally. And I tried to kind of get, one time I got hospitalized, I think I got 6,000 or 8,000 pesos back. But my bill was like a lot higher than that.
How much was your bill?
It was
Roughly?
maybe, I think, 70,000.
Oh, there you go. Diba? I mean, 10%. That's actually the problem. Pag binalik natin yung unused funds, sige nga, kaya bang pondohan ng PhilHealth yung 50% ng bill mo? That's the data. You see, I'm looking at your faces right now, ladies. That's the problem. The more we say, ibalik ang pera sa PhilHealth, the more you incentivize behavior that, the money is coming back and I don't need to spend it. Whereas, if you're in a government agency and the Congress tells you, what is your utilization rate? In 2024, the utilization rate of PhilHealth was just at 61%, latest data. Baka naman tumaas, we're hoping. Pero so far, 61% is not high. So it doesn't make sense. Ano nga, there's a may pinost si Secretary Ted, there's a famous UN personality na you don't throw money at problems. You make sure that you find out what the problem is. And the key here is to get PhilHealth to spend its money because it should not be hoarding money in the amount of 1.1 trillion.
That's the other criticism, right? That the utilization is low. And yung typical na sinasabi ngayon ng mga tao, no, ng mga kritiko ay dapat dyan, hindi tapisan ng budget, dapat palitan yung mga namumuno. Kasi sila yung may problema kung bakit hindi na-utilize ng maayos yung pera. Pwede naman daw i-expand yung services, which I think, to be fair to PhilHealth, they are considering by next year daw. Or lakihan, no, yung 10%. Baka naman di 50%, baka pwede gawing 15% or 20% ng bill yung sagutin naman ng PhilHealth. Because it is an insurance fund, and you know, some insurance agencies, they pay a lot more than just 10%. You know, and sometimes
Precisely. Yeah, precisely. You're saying it correctly. The thing here is, how do we make sure na kaya nilang gastusin? Kasi to give a government agency money is one thing. For that government agency to be able to use the money is another. And historically, nakikita natin sa data natin, Philippine National Health Accounts, like sabi mo, di ba, roughly 70,000 bill. Para madali, 7,000 nilang sabihin natin para 10%. The latest data, current health expenditures, ganito na lang, tagalugin ko, sa 100 piso, ilang piso ang sasagutin ng PhilHealth? Yung latest data, 10 piso, aka 10%. And your experience actually shows it. So you're correct, we have to bring it up. The target is maybe, sabi nila conservative target, baka mga 20 or 30%. But the dream is kung kaya 50, why not? And it will involve fast-tracking claims, making sure you have the IT system, making sure that your they call it a quasi-judicial system. There are a lot of lawyers in PhilHealth, and for the longest time, the behavior has been to somehow, kumbaga, question, why are you paying like this? Let's hold on to that. Because the behavior has been like a pension fund. They keep on trying to meet the 1.1 trillion ICL. Hindi kasi you're getting it. Hindi kasi dapat 1.1 trillion.
Let me get this clear. That means you're not in favor of giving a subsidy to PhilHealth. You're in favor actually of the zero subsidy to pressure PhilHealth to spend the money that it has to improve services because it already has money.
That's correct. And it has 284 billion corporate operating budget. In fact, for 2025, the budget for benefits even went higher. I'll just glance quickly at my notes. 271 billion yung nakaprogram out of 284 for benefits next year. So ako, I actually, ladies, I get frustrated parang on social media. I engage kapag mabait kausap, pero pag medyo ad hominem hindi ko sinasagot. But a lot of people have this misconception na walang benepisyong lalabas. Napapakamot kami yung ulo, sabi namin, paano mo walan ng benepisyo? Meron 271 billion na roughly, tingin namin baka mga 71%, 75% pa lang yung kayang kainin doon nung PhilHealth kasi mahina sila gumastos eh.
Try
But
ko
you mentioned it
explain,
correctly.
masyadong
dapat-
matipid.
Wait, try ko explain ganito. Parang ganito yung feeling ko, yung sentiment eh. Kasi next year, pwedeng magdagdag ng eye doctor, pwedeng magdagdag ng dentista. Kung bagay yung mga ganun ba, pwedeng i-add naman daw. Kung kailangan pa ng more ways or paglalagyan ng pera, pwede naman daw ilagay sa mga ganong paraan.
Dental treatments.
Dental treatments,
Yeah.
eye care or optometry services.
Yeah, lahat nun ilalagay natin, Sean. Pero ganito kasi yan, you probably have read news releases na kami rin yung nagre-release na in-approve na yung dental benefit, 1,000 per person per year.
Yeah.
The process takes around 2 to 3 months right now, yung process nila. Because that policy approved by the board has to be converted to what you call a circular. It has to be published in the newspapers. Then you have to have people inside the information technology department to somehow alter the programming code of what hospitals use to get paid. So the thing is, if we say that we add, there is always a lag time in implementation. It doesn't happen overnight. It will happen. We're going to look forward to it. But returning the money, so to speak, will just, kumbaga, incentivize, let's keep it, sasabihin ng mga taga-PhilHealth. Hindi lahat, by the way, internally in the corporation, there's also, shall I say, constructive turmoil. Kasi a lot of the people who understand are saying, ito na yung pagkakataon para magpakitang gilas tayo. And that's the effect that we want to happen. This 2025, with the 271 billion approved by the board for your budget in benefits, dear PhilHealth colleagues, let's make it clear to our people na kaya nating i-deliver. We We trust na kaya nilang i-deliver. Pero itong warning na to, we look at it as a warning in a system of carrots and sticks. This is a very strong stick saying that if you don't spend your money, we're not going to add to a ballooning reserve already that you have. It doesn't make sense kasi that's money in the bank that should actually be with the people.
Is there a better way to incentivize a better performance rather than taking away money? Because we do know that it could be a possible violation of the sin tax law, universal healthcare law. Hindi ba pwedeng una-una mag-focus na lang sa monitoring ng performance o palitan yung mga namumuno? Wala bang ganun? Kasi kailangan ba tayo mag-amount to this, that we actually remove money away from them?
Parang
ngayon,
parusahan.
napupunta sa iba. Ibang, di ba, iba pang controversial fund.
Yun nga kasi yun, unconstitutionality yung pumapasok sa picture no ASEC, di ba? Yung pag-move nung kita ng sin tax to UHC, dapat ganun Yun nung sinasabi nila. Ano yung...
Sean, that's a very heavy word. Only the Supreme Court can say that something is unconstitutional. I like how Gretchen actually used the word possibly.
Possibly.
Diba? Ayan, seryoso. I mean, in media, you have to be careful. Don't adopt what the advocates are saying kasi it's only a court of law that can say that something is illegal or unconstitutional. Always say, diba, di umano, ganyan. Kasi ang problema, pag inuulit-ulit yun, I'm not blaming you guys, pero we're hearing it. Parang people assume that, and I'm sorry pero they are my colleagues, they're medical doctors, and then they're using words like unconstitutional, illegal. Ladies and gentlemen, we are students of medicine. We're not students of law.
Yes.
The lawyers actually have different opinions. I have yet to hear a lawyer. Maybe there is one of them there, and there are a few yung petitioners. But that's something for the court to resolve.
So what is
The
your
problem here-
suggestion? What are the other possible recourses apart from taking money away from PhilHealth?
The money that was easily taken away by Congress can also be easily returned, and it's called by way of a supplemental budget. Yung sinasabi namin sa Tagalog na kailangan magpakitang gilas ng PhilHealth. Let's use a family analogy, 'di ba? Among the children, usually the favorite kid yung honor student, yung laging mataas yung grades ganyan. Siya yung nabibigyan ng allowance paano kung meron kang isang anak na ang dami pa yan nakaipon, tapos hindi naman siya top performing, tas give me more, give me more. What are you using your money for? I don't know, I'm investing it in my friends, ganyan, something. It doesn't make sense. So the solution here is, magpakitang gilas, spend as much, if not all, of the 271 billion, and the board is supportive in that regard, and probably we can convince Congress to actually return the money.
Parang parable of the talents.
Totoo.
Yeah, exactly. Parable of the talents. Exactly.
All right, maraming salamat. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us and helping us understand the other side of things. We have with us tonight ASEC Albert Domingo of the Department of Health.
Now up next, what do you think of the new bills released by the Bangko Sentral that replaces the familiar faces of Filipino icons with animals and plants? The BSP explains that change later. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. As we reported yesterday, the Bangko Sentral has released its new polymer series banknotes. The images on the bills have replaced the familiar faces of national heroes and icons. And this did not sit well with some groups. Rainiel Pawid tells us more.
The Bangko Central's launch of the additional polymer series banknotes yesterday was lauded by no less than President Bongbong Marcos. But the much-hyped bills with their enhanced security and durability features did not fare well with others. For one, the August 21 movement ATOM has expressed disapproval of the BSP's decision to replace images of Philippine heroes with local wildlife in its new series. In a statement, ATOM questioned the implications of omitting national heroes from the banknotes. ATOM also urged Filipinos to continue honoring the memory and legacy of national heroes who will be replaced by the new bills. The new polymer bills will now feature Philippine flora and fauna. The 500 peso bill will now feature the Visayas spotted deer and orchids, replacing the images of former President Cory Aquino and former Senator Ninoy Aquino. The new 100 peso bill replaces the image of former President Manuel Rojas with the Palawan peacock pheasant. The Visayan leopard cat replaces former President Sergio Osmeña's image on the 50 peso bill. The initial banknote of the Flora and Fauna series had images of the Philippine eagle, and the Sampaguita replaced heroes Jose Abad Santos, Vicente Lim, and Jose Falianes Escoda on the 1,000 peso bill. For historian Xiao Chua, replacing the faces of iconic Filipinos has its own downside.
Pag tinanggal mo yung mga personalidad sa pera, yung mga bayani, yung mga presidente, parang tinanggalan mo ng history lesson yung ordinaryong Pilipino. At mahihirapan na tayong ipaalala ano yung kasaysayan natin.
The BSP explained that while there's a new polymer series, the paper banknotes featuring Filipino heroes would remain valid and in circulation. The BSP also defended the redesign, citing the importance of showcasing various aspects of national pride.
It has always been the position of BSP that both featuring the national heroes and the rich biodiversity of the Philippines through our flora and fauna are both equally important and deserves to be recognized and for public awareness as well.
The new banknotes will be in circulation in Metro Manila next week and will be distributed nationwide in 2025.
And before we go, there's a big event over at España as the University of Santo Tomas is holding its Grand Pascuhan concert, which culminates the university's month-long Christmas festivities. And our mobile journalist, Ivan Tarinque, is right over there. Ivan, kamusta na dyan sa Pascuhan?
Pauline, Gretchen, Sean, ito nga Pascuhan, sa talagang inaabangan ng mga Tomasino ngayong taon. No? At ang tema ngayong taon ay for are ever thankful, ever hopeful. No? Kaninang alas 11 pa nga ng umaga, may mga tao na nakapila dito sa grandstand. No? Inunahan na nila yung mga tao dahil dito nga tuwing Pascuhan ay paunahan, pagandahan ng pwesto. No? So iba, 11 a.m. pa lang ay nakapila na at nakapwesto na sa harap ng grandstand. Alas 3 naman ang sinimula ng Pascuhan concert at pinangunahan yan ng mga Tomasian performers. Saka naman yan sinundan ng performances mula sa P-pop group na Alamat. Kumanta na rin ang singer na si Maki. No? At nakipagrakrakan na rin ang bandang Sponge Cola sa mga Tomasino at hinaranan na rin ng bandang Sub ang Tomasian crowd. Inaabangan ngayon. Actually, currently, ngayon tumutugtog ang bandang December Avenue at ilang minuto na nga lang ay masasakisihan natin. Yung isa talaga sa inaantay tuwing Pascuhan ay yung 10-minute na fireworks display. No? Sa huling tala na nakuha natin, nasa 39,000 na mga Tomasino ang pumunta at nakisaya at nakidalo sa taunang Pascuhan ngayon dito sa UST. Pauline, Sean, Gretchen.
Alright, mukhang masaya dyan. Baka pwede pa humabol.
Na-FOMO ako doon.
Thank you very much for that report. That was our mobile journalist, Ivan Tarinque.
Alright, we've run out of time. Clear run out of time. So that's it for the show on this last Friday before Christmas.
There's not much space out on the streets. Sobrang traffic. Grabe.
For every night. That's what we say.
Pero malala
So
talaga
traffic.
today because luwas day ng mga tao ngayon.
6 days? Wasn't it 6 days?
5 na lang.
Oh,
Ngayon,
so 5 na lang.
Oh my God.
Kasi December 20 na.
Alright.
Malapit na. Sana nakuha niyo na yung mga sweldo ninyo, pati mga 13th month para makabili pa kayo sa weekend.
Marami kang aginaldo na.
Oo, hintayin namin yung mga angpaw, Greg.
Polymer notes. Alright, on that note, we are One News All Sides all the time.
Don't forget the spirit of the season. Merry ang vibes ng Pasko. Stay tuned because coming up next is Play by Play with Andre Felix and Jessica Litton Calao.
Mukhang grabe talaga bonus mo, Gretchen.
May mga naglalaro pa ba sa ano?
Sorry, naalala niyo yung step?
Meron pa.
May mga?
May mga games pa raw ba?
May mga sports pa ba?
May mga games pa? Yes. NBA, PBA, syempre UAA.
Sa weekend, meron.
Yung, UAAP High School Junior. So, alam ko
Alam ko laging may PBA pag Pasko.
Oo nga,
may
oo.
Christmas Day game.
25th.
Yes, correct.
Sports never sleeps.
Okay,
Yes.
game na guys.
Ha?
Friday na, uwi na kami. Traffic daw, sabi ni guys.
Kahit nga sabi ko, okay lang. Happy weekend!
Happy weekend!
Happy weekend, ladies. Thank you. Well, Gretch was asking, check if there are some games. Well, we've got the latest NBA and PBA scores for you guys. A new champion in UAP Juniors basketball.
And we hear from UP basketball hero JD Kagulangan about winning another UAAP crown with the Fighting Maroons, as well as the next chapter of his career in Korea.
I'm Andre Felix.
And I'm Jessica Litton Calao.
And here's tonight's play-by-play.